It's crazy to think that it's the final video of the college football season I'm going to record. But here we are, Georgia, your 2022 college football playoff national champions, beating Alabama 33-18. Kirby Smart, the Bulldogs, finally taking down Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide. I'm not a big fan of either program, so I can kind of give you an unbiased recap of everything that went on tonight. Hopefully you view it that way. So Georgia comes into this game, and I've written down quite a few notes. You're going to have to see game notes, just stuff I was writing down as the game was going on. Nothing too important, kind of recapping some things that were happening, some of the flow of the game, just kind of little notes and stuff like that. You're going to see those in the description below. And right off the bat, Georgia had a lot of bad penalties. The Bulldogs did not seem like they were in the right mindset to win this game early on. Bennett, of course, seemed to have the jitters, and again, they were committing dumb penalties. And you can't really do that against Alabama. Usually when you try to beat Bama, you have to be very disciplined. You have to be playing a no-nonsense kind of game where you're able to just execute without having those kind of flaws. Georgia didn't have that throughout most of the night, and even up until the fourth quarter. Maybe in the fourth quarter they corrected it, but going into the fourth quarter, they were still having those issues early on in the second half. And in the fourth quarter, like I said, much cleaner game by them. But up until that point, Georgia was still committing dumb penalties that were just pushing them back and setting them, ruining drives basically for them. Intentional grounding calls, holdings, false starts, hands to the face, roughing the passer. There was all kinds of stuff that was just getting Georgia and throwing Georgia out of whack. But they cleaned that up later in the game. George Pickens made one big play in this game, one really big play, which is all they really needed out of him. Pickens, of course, tore his ACL before the year, kind of been working his way back in, trying to play, has not been anywhere close to 100%, but comes up with one big play early on in the game and kind of brings this offense to life for Georgia a little bit. Because before that, Georgia's offense was not doing much of anything. The Pickens play really kind of breathes life into them, gets them going, gives Bennett a little bit of confidence that he ends up carrying throughout most of the game, despite the fact that he had a bunch of really bad mistakes. The fumble that looked like it was originally an incomplete pass, but was indeed a fumble. Christian Harris sacks Bennett. He tries to throw the ball away. He ends up fumbling. Alabama recovers it deep in Georgia territory. That was obviously a mistake. There were plenty of plays where Bennett took a sack in one or two situations where he should have thrown the ball away. He was running for his life a lot of the night, unfortunately, so it's kind of hard to judge him too much because Alabama was getting a lot of pressure on him. I know that they moved Jamari Salyer around a little bit on the offensive line. He usually plays left tackle. I know they had him at guard at one point, which is probably where he'll play in the NFL. I'm not sure that was to alter the pass blocking scheme because they needed someone who was more fleet of foot on the outside, or because they were trying to establish the run on the inside. I don't know the snap breakdown yet either. I want to see how many snaps we play at left tackle versus right guard. I have to go back and look at that tomorrow. But yeah, Bennett kind of redeemed himself in the fourth quarter. I didn't think he played particularly well going into the final 15 minutes. But in the fourth quarter, he was almost flawless, had a bunch of really good throws, and things just seemed to go his way. And, and that's a credit to him. I'm not saying he got lucky. He legitimately played well against a very talented defense in the fourth quarter, and that's the reason why Georgia was able to go out there and win this game. Keely Ringo, of course, seals the deal with the pick six. He was a guy who I actually mentioned in my game notes, who seemed like he was getting targeted quite a bit and getting beaten by Alabama's offense a handful of times, but he comes up with a big play. The dude's been through the ringer this year, and he ends up sealing the win for Georgia. So a really nice storyline for him. Brock Bowers was really not a factor in this game. He got that touchdown at the end of the game, but only 4 receptions for 36 yards. George Pickens actually led the team in receiving yards with that one catch for 52 yards. So Bowers was not even a big factor in this game compared to where he was everything in the SEC championship game. He was the whole Georgia offense. This time around, not the case. Largely because Georgia was able to run the ball in the second half. I'm not sure what happened at halftime, but maybe it was just Alabama's defensive front getting worn down a little bit. Maybe it was just an adjustment to the game plan. But Zamir White averaged, I think, over 5 yards per carry in the second half. So, of course, he was doing well. He scored a touchdown. James Cook has a long 67-yard run. Prior to that point, the broadcast said the longest run Alabama had allowed all year was just 30 yards. James Cook comes out and runs for 67 on one play and really energizes this Georgia team. So really, I think the storyline of the day would probably be the big plays Georgia hit on offense to really make up some of the negative plays, whether that be the penalties, whether that be the 3rd and long situations they ended up in for most of the night. But overall, the big plays kind of evened out and really helped that offense stay on track. On the other side, Bryce Young, 2 interceptions in this game, clearly looked rattled towards the end of the game in the second half. He was not comfortable for most of the night. Now, I said this about the Cincinnati game as well. Cincinnati and Majay Sanders were able to get pressure on Bryce Young consistently. And I know that Alabama was not throwing the ball deep against Cincinnati because of Cincinnati's secondary. But Bryce Young did not look comfortable against the Bearcats. And he did not look comfortable for most of this game either. Georgia's defense, credit to them, were much better conditioned in this game than they were in the SEC championship game. They were alive much later on in the game. They had a lot more pressure, where they were applying pressure a lot more frequently early on, and really consistently, even to the end of the game. They sacked him, I think, twice on the final Alabama drive. And they were not getting anywhere near that kind of pressure in the SEC championship game. I don't know if it's conditioning. I don't know if it's a changed game plan. It looked like they were coming up with some exotic blitz packages and some exotic defensive fronts and shifts to throw at Bryce Young early in the game. I say exotic, not really exotic, but newer ones that they hadn't done before. I thought that was a really good game plan. If that was part of the game plan, I thought they executed that a lot better. The defensive front seemed to be much more alive in this game for Georgia than it had been in the past. The linebackers kind of faded a little bit in the second half, but the linebackers were flying around making plays early on as well. I think that was huge for them. Bryce Young did have an interception. He threw almost in triple coverage, but I think that was a miscommunication with, I think it was Billingsley he had out there as a receiver or out there as a pass catcher. So I don't blame him for that one. Of course, the second one, just the second interception, the Ringo, just a bad throw. Brian Robinson kind of contained for most of the day, ran the ball 22 times, and this is what I kind of wanted Georgia to force Alabama to do, run the ball a decent amount and try to stuff them and prevent them from getting anywhere on the ground. Because they have that dominant defense front, you might as well use it. All those big bodies with Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, who was phenomenal today. Don't regret him I have him as like a top 52 player in this class, this coming draft class, and I don't regret that whatsoever. Travon Walker also had a really good game. Nakobe Dean made some good plays, but did get lost in coverage once or twice. Darion Kendrick made some good plays, but again, he had some plays late in the game where he got beat. And Alabama playing with second-string receivers, second-string corners. No Josh Jobe, no Jalen Armour-Davis, no Jameson Williams. After the one big play, he gets a knee injury. He's done for the day. No John Mechie, obviously. So backup players at a lot of key positions. Now Alabama is deeper than almost every team in the country at those spots. But clearly that was impacting Bryce Young a little bit. Some of the guys were not running the right routes. Didn't have the same chemistry with the receivers. The corners made some mistakes late in the game. 2 crucial penalties. I know there's a pass interference call where the one corner just got beat and had to tackle the receiver. And then there was another penalty, also pass interference, I'm pretty sure, for just face guarding the receiver. So 2 pass interference calls late in the game that impacted the outcome. But overall, I thought Alabama's defense played pretty well for most of the game, considering the fact that 7 of the points Georgia scored was off of a pick 6. I thought the Bama defense did pretty good. Again, just Zamir White and James Cook getting going in the second half was really the difference. And it was the big plays. It was the 19-yard run by Zamir White. It was a 67-yard run by James Cook. It was the George Pickens catch. It was the 2 pass interference calls. And it was the Mitchell catch, the 40-yard. I think that was the touchdown catch by I'm not even going to say that first name. Adonai Mitchell, I think is how you say his name. I'm not entirely sure. I should have paid more attention to that on the broadcast. And then Cameron Latu at tight end was the big player for Alabama on offense. He really stepped up this year. Was what everyone thought Jaleel Billingsley would sort of be, that star tight end for Alabama. And Latu was impactful this game because he's one of the few players that Bryce Young had any continuity with based on getting reps with him this season. But you obviously never wish for guys to get injured, so it's a shame Jameson Williams couldn't play in this game for the most part. But you can't use that as an excuse for Alabama. Yes, they had backups at receiver and cornerback, but Georgia outplayed them significantly today. And I think Bryce Young was off his game because Georgia was getting pressure on him consistently. The Bulldogs looked completely different, in my opinion, in terms of the effort they put forward and the energy they had compared to what they were doing in the SEC championship game. So huge credit to Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs for figuring out what to do to win the national championship game and figuring out how to make the adjustments, not just to their game plan, but also the mentality to go out there and have a tremendous outing. I just want to scroll through my notes one more time. The blocked field goal obviously being huge for Georgia. I think that was Devontae Wyatt. This is the guy hand on it. Christian Harris was fantastic, I thought, for Alabama. Obviously, Will Anderson Jr. was great. Dallas Turner was great as well. But, just not enough at the end of the day to ultimately win this game for Crimson Tide. And Georgia comes out on top, deservedly so. Like I said, they made the most alterations to their game plan and mentality going to this game. I said on a show I did earlier today that Georgia had the largest room for improvement compared to Alabama based on how the SEC championship game went. And I think Georgia definitely capitalized on that room to improve. Alabama, more or less the same, which had been enough to steamroll Georgia in the past. And had they had all their guys healthy, could they have beaten Georgia? We'll never know. So there's no point in really asking the question. We won't know. But Georgia comes out, gets the win. Stetson Bennett, really good way to close the game. Really good way to potentially close off his college career. James Cook, a fantastic play. His draft stock's probably going to jump. George Pickens, one big play as well. And the defense for both teams was phenomenal throughout the day. Big performances from big-time players. Guys, the college football season is over. It's a wrap. And I'll talk to you all later.